denied, swept under the rug, and strangled. What should one do? Well, as I've often said, I'm not a preacher, and therefore I don't know what you should do. But no, I would like to make some reflections on this particular form of madness, to raise again a very disturbing question. And this disturbing question is as follows.
Oh, but there's no signs.
Is it only when you're in love with another person that you see them as they really are? And in the ordinary way, when you're not in love with people, you see only a fragmented version of that being.
I thought
wrong. When you're in
wrong.
love with someone, you do indeed see them as a divine being.
Yes.
And suppose that's
yeah,
what they are
to enforcement
truly.
Because of snow, but there are no signage.
Your eyes have by your beloved been opened, in which case your beloved is serving to you as a kind of guru.
Very annoying way to spend Christmas.
And that is why there is a form of sexual yoga, based on the idea that man and woman are to each other as
joyfully, but I joyfully liberate my car.
Tremendous outpouring of psychic energy,
very annoying way to speak, but I joyfully liberate my car.
Who is respectively the goddess or the god, you realize by total fusion and contact with the other organism, you go down to the divine center in them, and it bounces back, and you discover your own. Or you could put it in this way, which is another aspect of it, that by falling in love, and regarding falling in love not just as a sort of sexual infatuation, because it's always more than that, isn't it? I mean, you can have great sexual enjoyment with a pleasant friend, you know, but you may do so simply because he or she appeals to your aesthetic senses. But when you fall in love, it's much more serious involvement. You just cannot forget this person. You feel miserable when not in their presence. You're always yearning, let's see more of each other, let's get together, we're completely entangled. And then you see, you've actually, a kind of what I will call spiritual element has been introduced. And the Hindus were sensible enough to realize that this was a means of awakening, enlightenment, and therefore it was surrounded with a sort of religious, ritual, meditative art, with a form of sexual yoga that is designed to allow the feeling of mutual love to the extent of grand passion to have an extremely fitting fulfillment and expression. Falling in love is a thing that strikes like lightning and is therefore extremely analogous to the mystical vision. We don't know how really people attain the mystical vision. There is not as yet a very clear rationale as to how it happens, because we do know that it is opened to many people who never did anything to look for it. Many people, especially in adolescence, have had the mystical vision all of a sudden without the slightest warning and with no previous interest in that kind of thing. On the other hand, many people who have practiced yoga or Zen disciplines or what you will for years and years and years have never seen it.
No, but there was signage warning you.
And
wrong. In
most classes, there are, of course, exceptions. There are those who have never had the spontaneous experience, and there are those who, through yoga or Zen, have attained this insight. But as yet, we are not clear as to why it comes about.
Looking forward to
and if there is any method of attaining it, the best one is probably to give up the whole idea of getting it. But you see, it is completely unpredictable. And so it is, in that way, like falling in love, capricious, and therefore crazy. But if you should be so fortunate as to encounter either of these experiences, it seems to me to be a total denial of life to refuse it. And what we therefore have to admit in our society so that we can contain this kind of madness, we must be far more realistic about the marriage arrangement so that it can contain the possibility of falling in love. When you base marriage, you see, on falling in love, and you go into a pseudo-love affair, which is simply hot pants, and set up a rigid family in which you expect of the other person that they will always be in love with you. And then, in that context, you go and fall in love. Then your falling in love is of necessity disruptive of the marriage and of the family. But you see, it could only disrupt it because the love relationship between the two partners was false, was pretended. But if marriage were based more on the old idea of the reasonable contract between two people to bring up children, who are maybe expected at the best to be good friends, and to allow each other to be persons, that is to say, in the ordinary sense of the word person, to have their own freedom, then if love strikes, it is tolerated within this arrangement. Provided you not go to be so unreasonable as to go on to say, well, since I've fallen in love with some.
I think symbols, they speak to us on a level where some of them we can kind of intuitively understand them, others less so. Like I think the image of, say, a snake, right? I think most people can just kind of intuitively understand the different things that, say, maybe a snake represents. But I don't know, I think they speak to us on a level that is able to penetrate our subconscious maybe in a way. What are your thoughts on that kind of idea?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, 100%. And so that's exactly how it works. And so that is really, it's the language of the ancients, I would say would be symbolism. And that's why stories are important. That's why our dreams are important, right? That's why, conveying information through folklore to me is important. The oral tradition, right? And so oftentimes when you're looking at some of these older stories that people used to pass down, it's like a story between a coyote and a raven, or a frog and a scorpion.
You see, in this way, we can think about and structure the necessary stable social institution of family of some kind, without it being constantly threatened of foundering on the rocks of love. Now, you see, this then means that when people marry, if they take any vows at all to each other, instead of saying that they will always be true to each other in the sense of meaning I will always love you, it means I will be true to you in the sense of I will always be truthful to you. I will not pretend that my feelings towards you are other than what they are. Because I marry you because I think that you are a reasonable person to live with. And therefore I want you to be you. I don't want you to be someone else. I want you to be a rubber stamp of me. How boring that would be. So it is really an arrangement, not of, as we always say jocularly, did you get the ball and chain on him? But an arrangement in which people set each other free and make an alliance to cooperate with each other in certain ways. Now, if it should so occur that they are of immense sexual attraction to each other, so much the better. But this should not be a primary factor in entering into marriage. Admittedly, you must be, to a certain extent, attractive to each other, otherwise there will be no progeny. But but this seems to me to be a sensible and reasonable view, and just because it is sensible and reasonable, it can accommodate what is not sensible and reasonable, which is falling in love. We should regard then marriage, especially if it should possibly be called holy matrimony, as a mutual setting free of two people to live together in freedom and therefore in responsibility. Because the present situation, although it's pretending to be responsible, is in fact extremely irresponsible, because it is dishonesty with respect to the way you feel towards another person. Well, now really, when we go back then to falling in love and say it's crazy, falling, you see, we don't say rising into love. There is in it the idea of the fall. And it goes back, as a matter of fact, to extremely fundamental things. That there is always a curious tie at some point between the fall and the creation. Taking this ghastly risk is the condition of there being life. You see, for all, the life is an act of faith and an act of gamble. The moment you take a step, you do so on an act of faith because you know that the floor is not going to give under your feet. The moment you take a journey, what an act of faith. The moment you enter into any kind of human undertaking and relationship, what an act of faith. You've given yourself up. But this is the most powerful thing that can be done. Surrender. See, and love is an act of surrender to another person. Total abandonment. I give myself to you. Take me. Do anything you like with me. See? So, that's quite mad, because you see, it's letting things get out of control. All sensible people keep things in control. Watch it. Watch it. Watch it. Security.
250.
Vigilance.
Wow.
Watch it. Police. Watch
Yes,
it.
Samantha.
Guards. Watch it. Who's going to watch the guards?
I went to matzo ball.
So, actually, therefore, the course of wisdom, what is really sensible, is to commit oneself, to give oneself up, and that's quite mad. So we come to the strange conclusion that in madness lies sanity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Our podcast today was produced in tandem with the Ramdas Be Here Now podcast network. Our sponsor
No
is
street
Eaton
parking.
Ham. Our theme music today was by Zakir Hussain.
So,
courtesy of
now,
Roman Records.
take a lift
It's from
shortly
Zakir Hussain and the Rhythm Experience
to
album.
200
Thank
Whacker
you for joining us.
to
And
achieve
all of the materials in today's podcast are
the
from
Silver
the
Surfer.
Philosophy and Society album, which is available at alanwatts.org. These are two of the
Thanks
talks from the center of that
for
collection,
the gift.
but there are other remarkable ones.
Sorry for
And you
wasting
can join
it.
us for further information and many selections at the Alan
I'm
Watts
towing.
website.
God bless. I hope you. Love, brother. Love, brother John.
The Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu, as translated by Feng Jiafu and Jane English. Narrated by Robin Homer. 1. The tale that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. The nameless is the beginning of heaven and earth. The named is the mother of the 10,000 things. Ever
Hey
desireless,
Samantha, I
one
went to
can
matzo
see the
ball last night
mystery.
and my car got towed
Ever
and moved north.
desiring, one
You
sees the
absurdly happy.
manifestations. These two spring from the same source, but differ in name. This appears as darkness, darkness within darkness, the gate to all mystery. 2. Under heaven, all can see beauty as beauty, only because there is ugliness. All can know good as good, only because
Mom.
there is evil. Therefore, having and not having arise together. Difficult and easy
Lovely day,
complement each
Joy.
other. Long and short contrast each other. High and low rest upon each other. Voice and sound harmonize each other. Front and back follow one another. Therefore the sage goes about doing nothing, teaching no talking. The 10,000 things rise and fall without cease, creating yet not possessing, working yet not taking credit. Work is done, then forgotten, therefore it lasts forever. 3. Not exalting the gifted prevents quarreling. Not collecting treasures prevents stealing. Not seeing desirable things prevents confusion of the heart. The wise therefore rule by emptying hearts and stuffing bellies, by weakening ambitions and strengthening bones. If men lack knowledge and desire, then clever people will not try to interfere. If nothing is done, then all will be well. 4. The Tao is an empty vessel. It is used, but never filled. O unfathomable source of 10,000 things.
Wow, hi Samantha. I
Blunt
went
the
to matzo ball
sharpness,
last night and my
untangle
car
the
got
knot,
towed in River
soften
North.
the glare,
You absolutely
merge
have
with
to use
dust.
parking garages, no
O
street
hidden deep,
parking.
but
So
ever
now I
present.
take a lift shortly
I
to
do not
Toowoomba
know
Whack
from
and
whence it
retrieve the
comes.
Silver Surfer.
It is
Thanks
the
for the gift and
forefather
sorry
of the
for wasting it
gods.
on towing. God bless, and I hope you and Farron are having a
5.
peaceful and joyful day. Love,
Heaven
brother
and
John.
earth
P.S.
are
Mom, hope you're
impartial.
also having a
They
lovely day
see
of
the
joy.
10,000
And Saffron
things
is
as
in my
straw
blood
dogs.
box.
The wise are impartial. They see the people as straw dogs. The space between heaven and earth is like a bellows. The shape changes, but not the form. The more it moves, the more it yields. More words count less. Hold fast to the center. 6. The valley spirit never dies. It is the woman, primal mother. Her gateway is the root of heaven and earth. It is like a veil barely seen. Use it, it will never fail. 7. Heaven and earth last forever. Why do heaven and earth last forever? They are unborn, so ever living. The sage stays behind, thus he is ahead. He is detached, thus at one with all. Through selfless action, he attains fulfillment. 8. The highest good is like water. Water gives life to the 10,000 things and does not strive. It flows in places men reject, and so is like the Tao. In dwelling, be close to the land. In meditation, go deep in the heart. In dealing with others, be gentle and kind. In speech, be true. In ruling, be just. In daily life, be competent. In action, be aware of the time and the season. No fight, no blame. 9. Better to stop short than fill to the brim. Over-sharpen the blade, and the edge will soon blunt. Amass a store of gold and jade, and no one can protect it. Claim wealth and titles, and the Meditations of Book 5. 1. In the morning, when thou risest unwillingly, let this thought be present. I am rising to the work of a human being. Why, then, am I dissatisfied if I am going to do the things for which I exist, and for which I was brought into this world? Or have I been made for this, to lie in the bedclothes and keep myself warm? But this is more pleasant. Dost thou exist, then, to take thy pleasure, and not at all for action or exertion? Dost thou not see the little plants, the little birds, the ants, the spiders, the bees working together to put in order their several parts of the universe? And art thou unwilling to do the work of a human being? And dost thou not make haste to do that which is according to thy nature? But it is necessary to take rest also. It is necessary. However, nature has fixed bounds to this too. She has fixed bounds to eating and drinking, and yet thou goest beyond these bounds, beyond what is sufficient. Yet in thy acts it is not so, but thou stoppest short of what thou canst do. So thou lovest not thyself, for if thou didst, thou wouldst lovest thy nature and her will. But those who love their several arts exhaust themselves in working at them unwashed and without food. But thou valuest thy own nature less than the turner values the turning art, or the dancer the dancing art, or the lover of money values his money, or the vainglorious man his little glory. And such men, when they have a violent affection to a thing, choose neither to eat nor sleep, rather than to perfect the things which they care for. But are the acts which concern society more vile in thy eyes, and less worthy of thy labour? 2. How easy it is to repel and wipe away every impression which is troublesome or unsuitable, and immediately to be in all tranquillity. 3. Judge every word and deed which are according to nature, to be fit for thee, and be not diverted by the blame which follows from many people, nor by their words. But if a thing is good to be done or said, do not consider it unworthy of thee. For those persons have their peculiar principle, and follow their peculiar movement, which things do not thou regard, but go straight on, following thy own nature and the common nature, and the way of both is one. 4. I go through the things which happen according to nature, till I shall fall and rest, breathing out my breath into that element out of which I daily brought in, and falling upon that earth out of which my father collected the seed, and my mother the blood, my nurse the milk, out of which during so many years I have been supplied with food and drink, which bears me when I
I have a
travel
brand new
and
channel,
abuse it
built
for so
on a
many
brand new
purposes.
camera that is long videos,
5.
My main
Thou
channel is
sayest,
shorter videos.
men
This
cannot
new
admire
channel
the
is
sharpness of
longer
thy
videos.
wits.
I don't
Be
know
it
how
so.
happy I
But there are
am
many other
to
things
find
of
the
which thou canst
weird,
not say,
rubbery
I am not formed
obstacles.
from them by
What is
nature.
this? What
Show
is
those
this,
qualities
man?
then, which
What
are
is
altogether
this?
in thy
Show me.
power:
You troll us,
sincerity, gravity, endurance of labour, aversion to pleasure, contentment with thy
So that was
portion,
the cherry
and
lemon,
with
and
few
honestly,
things,
we're going through this suffering
benevolence,
this thing,
frankness,
and
no love of
it's not even really
superfluity,
that worth. Like, it does
freedom
have a
from
little
trifling,
cherry flavor, and
magnanimity.
here's the lemon.
Dost thou not see
Yeah, it does have
how
the lemon
many
flavor, but
qualities
it's
thou
just so
art
weird, man, 'cause
immediately
it's
able
very
to exhibit,
rubbery.
in
It's so
which there is
strange.
no
There's a
excuse
great
of
thing
natural
I've never had it
incapacity
down
and
there.
unfitness?
Yeah, like, where's the
And yet
pizza?
thou still
I know, right?
remainest
Let's see if they're good or
voluntarily
not.
below the mark.
Chicken Parmesan
Or art thou
sandwich.
compelled through being defectively furnished by nature to murmur, and to be stingy, and to
It
flatter,
looks like it'd be
and to
dry.
find fault
It
with thy
is dry,
poor
though,
body,
right? But in any
and to
case,
try
the
to
sauce
please
inside
men,
makes up for
and
that
to make
dryness.
great
I
display,
thought,
and to be so restless in
Taco
thy
Bell just
mind.
dropped brand new chicken nuggets,
No,
guys. And
by
oh
the
my gosh,
gods.
it's $4
But thou
for
mightest have been
5,
delivered from
$7
these things
Today
long
we're
ago.
opening every single
Only if
pack
in
of
truth
pizzas,
thou
guys.
canst be
Today we
charged
got
with
Pizza
being
Hut,
rather slow
$55.
and dull of
What the heck
comprehension.
are these? We
Thou
got
must
shoulders,
exert
chicken bones.
thyself about this thing more, not neglecting it, yet taking pleasure in what it does. 6.
Honestly, the most
One man,
underrated
when
fast
he
food
has
of
done a
all
service
time
to another,
A&W.
is ready to
And
set
you know
it down to his
Arby's is the
accountant
most
as a
hated.
favour conferred. Another is not ready to do this, but still in his own mind he thinks of the man as his debtor, and he knows what he has done. A third, in a manner, does not even know what he has done, but he is like a vine which has produced grapes, and seeks for nothing more after it has once produced its proper fruit. As a horse when he has run, a dog when he has tackled the game, a bee when it has made the honey, so a man, when he has done a good act, does not call out for others to come and see, but he goes on to another act, as a vine goes on to produce again the grapes in season. Must a man then be one of these, who in a manner act thus without observing it? Yes. But this very thing is necessary, the observation of what a man is doing. For it may be said, it is characteristic of the social animal to perceive that he is working in a social manner, and indeed to wish that his social partner also should perceive it. It is true that thou sayest, but thou dost not rightly understand what is now said, and for this reason thou wilt become one of those of whom I spoke before, for even they are misled by a certain show of reason. But if thou wilt choose to understand the meaning of what is said, do not fear that for this reason thou wilt omit any
Someone
social
was concerned
act.
about you. I'm sorry, did I make you drop that?
No, my daughter just.
7.
Do you have
A
a
prayer
driver's
of
license?
the
No, my
Athenians.
dad, he's walking
Rain,
over right now.
rain, oh dear,
You were driving though.
down on the
Okay, so
plowed
what did you
fields,
get?
What did I
the
Take something?
Athenians,
You're
and
acting
on the
really
plains.
No, I was just feeding my baby
In
food.
truth,
So
we
we
ought
went
not to
Go ahead,
pray.
kiss your daughter. Just give us a second. I'll be right back with you, okay?
This simple
Yes, I just, I didn't.
Hey, what are you doing? You hungry? French fries?
Just as we must understand when it is said that Asclepius prescribed to this man horse
Yeah,
exercise,
that's what I'd be afraid
bathing
of.
in cold water, or going without shoes, so we must understand it when it is said that the nature of the universe prescribed to this man
Your dad didn't seem
disease,
surprised.
mutilation,
You just sounded like
loss,
disappointed,
or
but you
anything
didn't
else
sound
of
mad.
the
Someone
kind.
was concerned about you. I'm sorry, did I make you drop
For in
that?
the first
No,
case,
my daughter just.
prescribed to be something like
You have a
this.
driver's license?
He prescribed this for this man as a thing adapted to procure health. And in the second case, it means that which happens
This is
to every
everything I
man
order
is
in
fixed in a
Express.
manner
Literally
for
my
him,
order every
suited
time.
to
Orange
his
chicken,
destiny.
Asian beef, half white
For
rice,
this is
half
what
chow
we
mein.
mean
Make sure you
when we
get
say that
half and
things
half
are
on the
suited
sides
to
because they give
us.
you more. One
As the
time for
word
the chow mein,
says,
get the
by
hot sauce and the
extending
sweet and
walls
sour,
or
open them up
pyramids,
together, pour
but
that
they are
right on
suitable
top of your
when they
noodles.
fit them to
Give
one
that a
another
good
in
mix.
some
Serve
kind
yourself
of
some
connection.
sweet and spicy chow mein.
For there is altogether one fitness, one harmony. And as the universe is made up out of all bodies to be such a body as it is, so out of all existing causes, destiny is made up to be such a cause as it is.
Good
And even
life.
those who are completely ignorant understand what I mean, for they say destiny brought this to such a person. This then was brought, and this was prescribed to him. Let us then receive these things, as well as those which Asclepius prescribes.
I've never
Maybe,
seen
as
someone
a
drink
matter of
water
course,
while having a
even
grill. You
among
have to
his
drink past the grill?
prescriptions are disagreeable,
Or you just drink like that?
but we accept them in
Why
the
are you just
hope of
waterfalling
health.
it?
Let the perfecting and accomplishment of the things which the common nature judges to be good
So you're not even
be
gonna
judged
tell
by
them
thee
how?
to be of the same kind as thy health.
Wow. So
And
you're
so
really gonna
accept
be cheap like
everything
that?
which happens,
This
even if
man
it
gathered
seems
the courage to
disagreeable,
bury his dog
because
alive,
it
and the
leads
reason will shatter your heart.
to the
When
health
this man
of
dug
the
a hole for his dog, the
universe,
dog
to the
knew what was
prosperity
happening,
and
because they've gone
felicity
through this
of
every
the
day. He buries the dog because it's the
For
only
he
way
would
for
not
this
have
sick
brought
dog to
on any
find
man
rest.
what
The
he
dog
has
is
brought,
battling with
if
cancer.
it were not useful for the
Three
whole.
reasons why you need this
Neither
tire
does the
changer.
nature of
Reason
anything,
one,
whatever
this
it may
tires
be,
ranging from 12
cause
to 21
anything
inches
which is
and
not
wheels
suitable
up to
to
39
that which is
inches,
directed
making it
by
perfect
it.
for most vehicles. Tire
For
changer
two
is a
reasons,
piece of cake
then,
with
it is
it.
right to
Reason
be
two,
content
this
with
machine
that
is
which
a pneumatic
happens to
tire
you.
changer and it's
The one,
battery
because
free.
it was
Got a
done
flat in
for
the middle of
and
nowhere, no
prescribed
sweat.
for
You
you,
can fix your
and
tires
in a
right on
manner
the
and
spot.
reference
Plus,
to
it comes with a free
originally from the most
170
ancient
PSI air
causes
compressor
spun
gauge.
with
Keep
thy
your tires
destiny, and the other, because even that which comes severally to every man is to the power which administers the universe a cause of felicity and perfection, nay, even of its very continuance. For the integrity of the whole is mutilated if thou cuttest off anything whatever, the conjunction and the continuity, either of the world's score their causes. And thou dost cut off as far as it is in thy power, when thou art dissatisfied, and in a manner triest to put everything out of the way. 9. Be not disgusted or discouraged or dissatisfied if thou dost not succeed in doing everything according to right principles. But when thou hast failed, return back again, and be content if the greater part of what thou dost is consistent with man's nature, and love this too which thou returnest. And do not return to philosophy as if she were a master, but act like those who have sore eyes and apply a bit of a sponge and egg, whose another applies a plaster, or drenching with water. And remember that philosophy only requires things which thy nature requires. But thou wouldst have something else which is not according to nature. It may be objected, why, what is more agreeable than this which I am doing? But is not this the very reason why pleasure deceives us? And consider if magnanimity, freedom, simplicity, equanimity, piety are not more. For what is more agreeable than wisdom itself, when thou thinkest of the security and the happy course of things which depend on the faculty of understanding and knowledge.
Were you just hiding
10.
Belly while you told me how to
Things are in such a
no.
kind of envelopment that they have seemed to
just didn't
philosophers,
want it to sell out.
not a
I'm
few,
gonna
nor
come back
those
for
common
that.
philosophers,
I'll leave it
altogether
there.
unintelligible. Nay, even to the Stoics themselves they seem difficult to understand. And all our assent is genuine.
This is how
For
elite
where is
special
the man
forces
who
are
never
trained.
changes?
As this exercise might
Carry
seem
thy
strange at
thoughts
first,
then
the
to the
commander fires
objects
multiple
themselves,
rounds in between the
and
soldiers
consider
who are
how
doing
short
push-ups at the
lived
same
they
time.
are, and
This
worthless,
intense drill helps them
and that they may
adapt to
be
the
in the
harshness
possession
of
of
real
filthy
warfare.
wretch, or a whore, or a
This is
robber.
how elite special
Then
forces are
turn to the
trained.
morals of those
As
who
this
live with
exercise,
thee, and it is hardly possible to endure even the most agreeable, to say nothing of a man being hardly able to endure himself. In such darkness then, and dirt, and in so constant a flux both of substance and of time, and of motion and of things moved, what there is worth being highly prized, or even an object of serious pursuit, I cannot imagine. But on the contrary, is a man's duty to comfort himself, and to wait for the natural dissolution, and not to be vexed at the delay, but to rest in these principles only. The one, that nothing will happen to me which is not contrary to the nature of the universe, and the other, that it is in my power never to act contrary to my God and David, for there is no man who will compel me to this. 11. About what am I now employing my own soul? On every occasion I must ask myself this question, and inquire, what have I now in this part of me which they call a ruling principle? And whose soul have I now? That of a child, or of a young man, or of a feeble woman, or of a tyrant, or of a domestic animal, or of a wild beast? 12. What kind of things those are which appear good to the many, we may learn even from this. For if any man should conceive certain things as being really good, such as prudence, temperance, justice, fortitude, he would not, after having first conceived these, endure to listen to anything which should not be in harmony with what is really good. But if a man has first conceived as good the things which appear to the many to be good, he will listen and readily receive as very applicable that which was said by the comic writer. Thus, even the many perceive the difference. For were it not so, this saying would not offend and would not be rejected, while we receive it when it is said of wealth and of the means which further luxury and fame, as said fitly and wittily. Go on then, and ask if we should value and think those things to be good, to which after their first conception in the mind, the words of the comic writer may be aptly applied, that he who has them through pure abundance has not a place to ease himself in. 13. I am composed of the formal and the material, and neither of them will perish into non-existence, as neither of them came into existence out of non-existence. Every part of me, then, will be reduced by change into some part of the universe, and that again
I'm
will
going to my
change
sister's
into
house. I
another
took him.
part of the
Congratulations.
universe, and
Maybe
so
I'll be
on
successful
forever.
at that last job.
And by consequence of such a change, I too exist, and those who begot me, and so on forever in the other direction. For nothing hinders us from saying so, even if the universe is administered according to definite periods. 14. Reason and the reasoning art, philosophy, are powers which are sufficient for themselves and for their own purpose. They move from a false principle, which is their own, and they make their way to the end, which is proposed to them. And this is the reason why such acts are named cataphosis, right acts, which word signifies that they proceed by the right road.
Put your hands on the back of that truck. You see that? Put your hands on the back of that truck.
None of these things ought to be called a man, which do not belong to a man, as man. They are not required of a man, nor is man's nature prompted, nor are they the means of man's nature attaining its end. Neither is the end of man's
Staff
life
Sergeant Owens is with Camden County Sheriff's
the end
Office.
which aids the
Camden County, put
accomplishment
your hand
of
behind your
this
back.
end.
Do I have a
And that
warrant?
which aids
No.
this end is that which is
Here,
good.
put your hand behind your back and you're getting
Besides,
tased. I'm telling
if
you
any of
right
these
now.
things
Why am I
did
getting
belong
tased?
to
Because
man,
you are under
it
arrest
would
for
not be
speeding and
right
reckless driving.
to
I'm not
despise
driving
them
nobody
and to
was
set
hurt.
himself
I was out
against
speeding.
them.
You passed me doing
Nor
100
would
miles
a
an
man be
hour.
worthy of
Okay, so
praise
that's a
who
speeding
showed
ticket,
that he
right?
did not
Sure.
want,
Tickets and sent it towards your criminal
nor would
offenses.
he
I
who
don't have a
stinted
ticket in
himself
Georgia. You do
be
now?
good,
Why?
if
You
indeed
passed me doing
these
100
things
miles an
were
hour.
good.
And what? I'm not going hands behind your back.
But
Yes,
now,
you were going to
the more
jail.
of these things a man deprives himself, or of other things like them, or even when he is deprived,
Can you make me one of my
the more
followers, please?
patiently he
Yeah, I'm gonna
endures
try
the
it, man.
loss.
Apparently,
Just in the
she
same
said it was
degree,
good. We're
he
gonna
is a
figure this
better
out today.
man.
So she said she gets white rice,
16. Such as are thy habitual thoughts, so also will be the character of thy mind.
Can
For
you
the
make me
soul
one?
is dyed by the thoughts.
Okay, hold on.
Diet, then, with a continuous series of thoughts as these. For instance, that where a man
And then
can live,
she said the
there he
famous
can also
vinaigrette
live
and the
well.
chipotle
But he
tabasco.
must live in a palace. Well, then, he can also live well in a palace.
Alright, let's do it.
Shout out
And
Isabel
again,
for commenting her
consider
favorite
that for
Chipotle order.
whatever
I'm gonna go ahead
purpose
and rate
each
it
thing
1
has
through
been
10. She
constituted,
told me to try it
for
with the
this
Tabasco
it has
sauce, so I'm
been
gonna go ahead and pour it on
constituted,
top.
and towards
Oh,
this
yeah.
it is carried,
Mhm.
and its end
And then
is
we're gonna
in
dip it in
that
the
towards
sauce.
which it is
Oh,
carried.
this is a heavy burrito.
And where the end is,
Isabel, you be
there
eating.
also is the advantage and the good of each thing. Now the good, reasonable animal is society. For that we are made for society has been shown above. Is it not plain that the inferior exists for the sake of the superior? But the things which have life are superior to those which have not life, and of those which have life, the superior are those which have reason. 17. To seek what is impossible is madness, and it is impossible that the bad should not do something of this kind. 18. Nothing happens to any man which he is not formed by nature to bear. The same things happen to another, and either because he does not see that they have happened, or because he would show a great spirit, he is firm and remains unharmed. It is a shame, then, that ignorance and conceit should be stronger than wisdom. 19. Things themselves touch not the soul, not in the least degree, nor have they admission to the soul, nor can they turn or move the soul. But the soul turns and moves itself alone, and whatever judgments it may think proper to make, such it makes for itself the things which present themselves to it. 20. In one respect, man is the nearest thing to me, so far as I must do good to men and endure them. But so far as some men make themselves obstacles to my proper acts, man becomes to me one of the things which are indifferent, no less than the sun, or wind, or a wild beast. Now it is true that these may impede my action, but they are no impediments to my effects and disposition, which have the power of acting conditionally and changing. For the mind converts and changes every hindrance to its activity into an aid, and so that which is a hindrance is made a furtherance to an act, and that which is an obstacle on the road helps us on this road. 21. Reverence that which is best in the universe, and this is that which makes use of all things and directs all things. And in like manner also, reverence that which is best in thyself, and this is of the same kind as that. For in thyself also, that which makes use of everything else is this, and thy life is directed by this. 22. That which does no harm to the state does no harm to the citizen. In the case of every appearance of harm, apply this rule: if the state is not harmed by this, neither am I harmed. But if the state is harmed, thou must not be angry with him who does harm to the state. Show him where his error is. 23. Often think of the rapidity with which things pass by and disappear, both the things which are and the things which are produced. For substance is like a river in a continual flow, and the activities of things are in constant change, and the causes work in infinite varieties, and there is hardly anything which stands still. And consider this which is near to thee, this boundless abyss of the past and of the future in which all things disappear. How then is he not a fool who is puffed up with such things, or plagued about them, and makes himself miserable? For they vex him only for a time, and a short time. 24. Think of the universal substance, of which thou hast a very small portion, and of universal time, of which a short and indivisible interval has been assigned to thee, and of that which is fixed by destiny, and how small a part of it thou art. 25. Does another do me wrong? Let him look to it. He has his own disposition, his own activity. I now have what the universal nature wills me to have, and I do what my nature now wills me to do. 26. Let the part of thy soul which leads and governs be undisturbed by movements in the flesh, whether of pleasure or of pain. And let it not unite with them, but let it circumscribe itself and limit those effects to their parts. But when these effects rise up to the mind by virtue of that other sympathy that naturally exists in the body which is all one, then thou must not strive to resist the sensation, for it is natural. But let not the ruling part of itself add to the sensation the opinion that it is either good or bad. 27. Live with the gods, and he does live with the gods, who constantly shows them that his own soul is satisfied with that which is assigned to him, and that it does all that the daemon wishes, which Zeus hath given to every man for his guardian and guide, a portion of himself, and this is every man's understanding and reason. 28. Art thou angry with him whose armpits stink? Art thou angry with him whose mouth smells foul? What good will this anger do thee? He has such a mouth, he has such armpits. It is necessary that such an emanation must come from such things. But the man has reason, we say, and he is able, if he takes pains, to discover wherein he offends. I wish thee well of thy discovery. Well, then, by thy rational faculties, stir up his rational faculty. Show him his error, admonish him. For if he listens, thou wilt cure him, and there is no need of anger. Neither tragic actor nor author. 29. As thou intendest to live when thou art gone, so it is in thy power to live here. But if men do not permit thee, then get away out of life, yet so as if thou wert suffering no harm. The house is smoky, and I quit it. Why dost thou think that this is any trouble? But so long as nothing of the kind drives me out, I remain, am free, and no man shall hinder me from doing what I choose. And I choose to do what is according to the nature of the rational and social animal. 30. The intelligence of the universe is social. Accordingly, it has made the inferior things for the sake of the superior, and it has fitted the superior to one another. Thou seest how it has subordinated, coordinated, and assigned to everything its proper portion, and has brought together into concord with one another the things which are the best. 31. How hast thou behaved hitherto to the gods, thy parents, brethren, children, teachers, to those who looked after thy infancy, to thy friends, kinsfolk, to thy slaves? Consider if thou hast hitherto behaved to all in such a way that this may be said of thee, never has wronged a man in deed or word. And call to recollection both how many things thou hast passed through, and how many things thou hast been able to endure, and that the history of thy life is now complete, and thy service is ended. And how many beautiful things thou hast seen, and how many pleasures and pains thou hast despised, and how many things called honourable thou hast spurned, and to how many ill-minded folks thou hast shown a kind disposition. 32. Why do unskilled and ignorant souls disturb him who has skill and knowledge? What soul then has skill and knowledge? That which knows beginning and end, and knows the reason which pervades all substance, and through all time by fixed periods administers the universe. 33. Soon, very soon, thou wilt be ashes or a skeleton, and either a name or not even a name. But name is sound and echo. And the things which are much valued in life are empty and rotten and trifling, and like little dogs biting one another, and little children quarrelling, laughing, and then straightway weeping. But fidelity and modesty and justice and truth are fled. Up to Olympus from the widespread earth. What then is there which still detains thee here? If the objects of sense are easily changed and never stand still, and the organs of perception are dull and easily receive false impressions, and the poor soul itself is an exhalation from blood. But to have good repute amid such a world as this is an empty thing. Why then dost thou not wait in tranquillity for thy end, whether it is extinction or removal to another state? And until that time comes, what is sufficient? Why, what else than to venerate the gods and bless them, and to do good to men, and to practice tolerance and self-restraint? But as to everything which is beyond the limits of the poor flesh and breath, to remember that this is neither thine nor in thy power. 34. Thou canst pass thy life in an equable flow of happiness, if thou canst go by the right way, and think and act in the right way. These two things are common both to the soul of God and to the soul of man, and to the soul of every rational being, not to be hindered by another, and to hold good to consist in the disposition of justice and the practice of it, and in this to let thy desire find its termination. 35. If this is neither my own badness, nor an effect of my own badness, and the common weal is not injured, why am I troubled about it? And what is the harm to the common weal? 36. Do not be carried along inconsiderately by the appearance of things, but give help to all according to thy ability, and and if they should sustain loss in matters which are indifferent, do not imagine this to be a damage, for it is a bad habit. But as the old man, when he went away, asked back his foster child's top, remembering that it was just a top, so do thou in this case also. When thou art calling out from the rostrum, hast thou forgotten, man, what these things are? Yes, but they are objects of great concern to these people. Wilt thou too, then, be made a fool for these things? I was once a fortunate man, but I lost it. I know not how. But fortunate means that a man has assigned to himself a good fortune, and a good fortune is good disposition of the soul, good emotions, good actions. Book 6. 1. The substance of the universe is obedient and compliant, and the reason which governs it has in itself no cause for doing evil, for it has no malice, nor does it do evil to anything, nor is anything harmed by it. But all things are made and perfected according to this reason.
This guy was caught red-handed
2.
cheating in a slippery stairs
Let
contest.
it make no difference to thee
Challenge
whether
Joey's
thou
son
art
without
cold
falling,
or
but
warm,
this guy decided
if thou
to
art
cheat by
doing
digging
thy
his
duty,
fingernails into the stairs
and
for
whether
extra
thou
credit.
art
It
drowsy
was
or
clearly against
satisfied
the
with
rules.
sleep,
He was then
and whether
forced to
ill
restart from the
spoken
bottom,
of
but
or
instead of playing
praised,
fair,
and
he
whether
decided to
dying
sabotage
or
the
doing
players,
something
making the
else.
game even more chaotic.
For it is one of the acts of life, this act by which we die. It is sufficient, then, in this act also, to do well what we have in hand. 4. All existing things soon change, and they will either be reduced to vapor, if all substance is one, or they will be dispersed. 5. The reason which governs knows what its own disposition is, and what it does, and on what material it works. 6. The best way of avenging myself is not to become like the wrongdoer.
This father and son are after
7.
a rare...
Take pleasure in one thing and rest in it, in passing from one social act to another social act, thinking of God. 8. The ruling principle is that which rouses and turns itself, and while it makes itself such as it is, and such as it wills to be, it also makes everything which happens appear to itself to be such as it wills. 9. In conformity to the nature of the universe, every single thing is accomplished. For certainly it is not in conformity to any other nature that each thing is accomplished, either a nature which externally comprehends this, or a nature which is comprehended within this nature, or a nature external and independent of this. 10. The universe is either a confusion and a mutual involution of things and a dispersion, or it is unity and order and providence. If, then, it is the former, why do I desire to tarry in a fortuitous combination of things and such a disorder? And why do I care about anything else than how I shall at last become earth? And why am I disturbed, for the dispersion of my elements will happen whatever I do? But if the other supposition is true, I venerate, and I am firm, and I trust in him who governs. 11. When thou hast been compelled by circumstances to be disturbed in a manner, quickly return to thyself, and do not continue out of tune longer than the compulsion lasts, for thou wilt have more mastery over the harmony by continually recurring to it.
trying the most unique pizza in the
12.
entire world.
If thou hadst a stepmother and a mother at the same time, thou wouldst be dutiful to thy stepmother, but still thou wouldst constantly return to thy mother. Let the court and philosophy now be to thee stepmother and mother. Return to philosophy frequently, and repose in her, through whom what thou meetest in the court appears to thee tolerable, and thou appearest tolerable in the court. 13. When we have meat before us and such edibles, we receive the impression that this is the dead body of a fish, and this the dead body of a bird or of a pig, and again that this Falernian is only a little grape juice, and this purple robe some sheep's wool dyed with the blood of a shellfish. Such then are these impressions, and they reach the things themselves and penetrate them, and so we see what kind of things they are. Just in the same way, we ought to act all through life, and where there are things which appear most worthy of our approbation, we ought to lay them bare and look at their worthlessness, and strip them of all the words by which they are exalted. For outward show is a wonderful perverter of the reason, and when thou art most sure that thou art employed about things worth thy pains, it is then that it cheats thee most. Consider then what Crates said of Xenocrates himself. 14. Most of the things which the multitude admire are referred to objects of the most general kind, those which are held together by cohesion of natural organization, such as stones, woods, fig trees, vines, olives. But those which are admired by men, who are a little more reasonable, are referred to the things which are held together by a living principle, as flocks, herds. Those which are admired by men who are still more instructed are the things which are held together by a rational soul, not, however, a universal soul, but rational so far as it is a soul skilled in some art, or expert in some other way, or simply rational so far as it possesses a number of slaves. But he who values a rational soul, a soul universal and fitted for political life, regards nothing else except this, and above all things he keeps his soul in a condition and in an activity comfortable to reason and social life, and he cooperates to this end with those who are of the same kind as himself. 15. Some things are hurrying into existence, and others are hurrying out of it, and of that which is coming into existence, part is already extinguished. Motions and changes are continually renewing the world, just as the uninterrupted course of time is always renewing the infinite duration of ages. In this flowing stream, then, on which there is no abiding, what is there of the things which hurry by, on which a man would set a high price? It would be just as if a man should fall in love with one of the sparrows which fly by, but it has already passed out of sight. Something of this kind is the very life of every man, like the exhalation of the blood and the respiration of the air. For such as it is to have once drawn in the air and to have given it back, which we do every moment, just the same is it with the whole respiratory power, which thou didst receive at thy birth yesterday and the day before, to give it back to the element from which thou didst first draw it. 16. Neither is transpiration, as in plants, a thing to be valued, nor respiration, as in domesticated animals and wild beasts, nor the receiving of impressions by the appearances of things, nor being moved by desires, as puppets by strings, nor assembling in herds, nor being nourished by food, for this is just like the act of separating and parting with the useless part of our food. What, then, is worth being valued? To be received with clapping of hands? No, neither must we value the clapping of tongues, for the praise which comes from the many is a clapping of tongues. Suppose, then, that thou hast given up this worthless thing called fame. What remains that is worth valuing? This, in my opinion, to move thyself and to restrain thyself in conformity to thy proper constitution, to which end both all employments and arts lead. For every art aims at this, that the thing which has been made should be adapted to the work for which it has been made. And both the vine planter who looks after the vine, and the horse breaker, and he who trains the dog, seek this end. But the education and the teaching of youth aim at something. In this, then, is the value of the education and the teaching. And if this is well, thou wilt not seek anything else. Wilt thou not cease to value many other things too? Then thou wilt be neither free nor sufficient for thy own happiness, nor without passion. For of necessity thou must be envious, jealous, and suspicious of those who can take away those things, and plot against those who have that which is valued by thee. Of necessity, a man must be altogether in a state of perturbation who wants any of these things, and besides, he must often find fault with the gods. But to reverence and honour thy own mind will make thee content with thyself, and in harmony with society, and in agreement with the gods. That is, praising all that they give and have ordered. 17. Above, below, all around are the movements of the elements. But the motion of virtue is in none of these. It is something more divine, and advancing by a way hardly observed, it goes happily on its road. 18. How strangely men act. They will not praise those who are living at the same time and living with themselves, but to be praised by posterity, by those whom they have never seen nor ever will see, this they set much value on. But this is very much the same as if thou shouldst be grieved because those who lived before thee did not praise thee. 19. If a thing is difficult to be accomplished by thyself, do not think that it is impossible for man. But if anything is possible for man, and conformable to his nature, think that this can be attained by thyself too. 20. In the gymnastic exercises, suppose that a man has torn thee with nails, and by dashing against thy head has inflicted a wound. Well, we neither show any signs of vexation, nor are we offended, nor do we suspect him afterwards as a treacherous fellow, and yet we are on our guard against him, not, however, as an enemy, nor yet with suspicion, but we quietly get out of his way. Something like this let thy behaviour be in all the other parts of life. Let us overlook many things in those who are like antagonists in the gymnasium. For it is in our power, as I said, to get out of the way, and to have no suspicion nor hatred. 21. If any man is able to convince me and show me that I do not think or act right, I will gladly change, for I seek the truth, by which no man was ever injured, but he is injured who abides in his error and ignorance. 22. I do my duty. Other things trouble me not, for they are either things without life, or things without reason, or things that have rambled and know not the way. 23. As to the animals which have no reason, and generally all things and objects, do thou, since thou hast reason and they have none, make use of them with a generous and liberal spirit. But towards human beings, as they have reason, behave in a social spirit, and on all occasions call on the gods,